Welcome to another episode of Healing Tales. I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts, and today's guest really has a very unique perspective. She's healed from, we'll just start that over. Thank goodness for editing. Welcome back to Healing Tales. I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts. Today's guest has a truly unique perspective. She's both healed from and now helps others heal from chronic fatigue syndrome. Dr. Jenny Tufinkian is a licensed naturopathic physician with over 20 years of experience, but her journey began as a patient. Her own battle with debilitating chronic disease was leading her to discover what she calls, boy, I'm off tonight, sorry. Dr. Jenny Tufinkian is a licensed I really am off. Wow. Okay.
We could do some breath work.
Yeah. Dr. Jenny Tufinkian is a licensed naturopathic physician with over 20 years of experience, but her journey began as a patient. Her own battle with debilitating chronic fatigue led her to discover what she calls the 5 core root causes of chronic fatigue and ME/CFS. So, mouthful of initials, which we'll get into in a minute. But this breakthrough really transformed not only her life, but also thousands of others. Dr. Jenny specializes in helping health conscious professionals conquer long COVID and chronic fatigue by addressing the whole person: physical, mental, emotional, and energetic bodies. She is the host of Brain Fog, Chronic Fatigue, and Long COVID Breakthrough Summit 2.0, bringing together over 40 world experts to tackle what she calls the hidden pandemic affecting more than 400 million people worldwide. So today we're going to explore her transformative 5 root cause approach and how she helps people transition from exhaustion to full vitality. Dr. Jenny, welcome to Healing Tales.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Ruth Roberts. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and everyone listening to us today.
And I think what you're doing is super important. So this is the second Summit 2.0, addressing the connection between long COVID, chronic fatigue, and even future dementia risk. And so can you explain this connection for our listeners?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So you talked about your introduction that I've had this history of having my own version of chronic fatigue, and we now call it myalgic encephalitis. We can dive into that later. But I was really sick in bed as a medical student. I had to take a year out of school. I'd had a miscarriage and was incredibly ill, and to the point where people thought I might die. I was in bed with IVs in my arm, staring at the ceiling, kind of really very sick. And I came out of that, and then I had a relapse 15 years later, and I discovered many things during that time that's where I discovered those 5 core root causes. Back then, we didn't understand what was causing the fatigue in people. We really didn't. We had different things. And so it was a lot of sleuthing that I did to do that. But one of the things that we've really discovered now, and that has been so amazing at bringing all of these professionals together for this summit. We have renowned researchers and authors and physicians who are really the cutting edge of what's happening in the brain, what's happening in the body with these conditions. And some of the recent research has shown us that there is so much commonality between these different conditions. Basically, what we can say is if you have brain fog, if you have fatigue, if you have anxiety, if you experience depression, you have inflammation in your brain. And that inflammation in your brain is the exact same thing that leads to dementia, all the dementias. And long COVID is doing the same thing. There's a brain inflammation aspect to long COVID that's part of the vicious cycle of long COVID that is so important for us to address, because if you can start paying attention to the fatigue you're experiencing now, the brain fog you're experiencing now, the moods up and downs that you're experiencing now, then you're going to be able to get that inflammation down, and you're going to reduce your risk of having dementia later in life. We now know that the changes in the brains, those that can start in their 30s and 40s for people. And you don't have any outward signs or symptoms, but there's that smoldering fire in the brain. So it's very exciting to bring this information to people because there's so much we can do. We have Dale Bredesen, who is just sharing his recently published research showing that what we do in lifestyle can slow and reverse and stop Alzheimer's in peer-reviewed multiple research studies that he is now publishing. Really exciting, very empowering. And what we're seeing is how this reflects to the long COVID. The long COVID is a complicated situation, and yet we are seeing people have breakthroughs with their long COVID when they apply these principles to their bodies.
That's amazing. And so many of you pet parents are like, Dr. Ruth, why do you have Dr. Jenny on? And the truth is that these mechanisms are happening in our dogs and cats' brains. And there's a myriad of reasons for them to happen, but the same basic concepts, the inflammation, all of this stuff creates, unfortunately, what we call canine cognitive dysfunction. So, Dr. Bredesen's work is actually something I modeled to help dogs and cats with cognitive dysfunction, and it was tremendously helpful. So that's part of why I want you to have this information, not only for yourself, but for your pets too. One of the things that I think is super important for people to understand is you mentioned you had all this horrible disease and a relapse 15 years later. So, what is it like for here you are in medical school, just starting into your career? What is it like to be like, holy smokes, I am flat on my back and I'm not seeing a way
Mhm,
out of this?
mhm. Yeah, that moment, that that time in bed was profound for me. It was a very deep experience for me. I had lost 5 people close to me that year. They had died. I had a miscarriage, and then I had a second miscarriage, and the second miscarriage was at 17 weeks, and I hemorrhaged and passed out and had to be rushed to the hospital. And so I was experiencing lots of grief. I was experiencing massive hormone changes, and it triggered a lot in my body physically, and I know now that it probably reactivated some chronic viruses I had, and that was a big part of it. I'd been a medical student with a 4-year-old, so I was also the stress was there too, and so I was already
Oh,
depleted, and then I got more depleted, so in terms of complete shutdown of the adrenals and then thyroid issues and all kinds of stuff. So there were a lot of physical reasons, but that became a dark night of the soul for me in the sense that I really had to face, did I want to live? And what was life about? And it was a body slam by the universe to deal with this other aspect of my being that I hadn't paid attention to before. I had friends in medical school who would go off to meditate, and I was like, I don't have time for that. I have a child in my medical school. I'm going to go Xerox the notes and go home and study. And I didn't have time to stop. And I was always the one that was the capable one. I had took care of everybody in my universe. And so for me to be body slammed where I was 100% dependent on everybody else to literally get to the bathroom was I had to learn to let the world turn without me. I had to learn how to be a human being instead of a human doing. And as a doctor, it was really interesting. All of my professors came to my bedside. It was very sweet and helped me. My homeopathic, my herbalist, my they were there trying to see if what we could do to get me feeling better. And I was very blessed by their presence. And what this really gave me was amazing insight in how much we can heal. So when I did go back to medical school, when I went back into clinic as a student clinician, I understood the space of what it feels like to be that sick. And I understood what it feels like to be on what frankly felt like the brink of death. And I had I had ice up to my knees. My body really wasn't working, and I really had to force myself to eat to stay alive. And it was to be able to have that space as a clinician was the biggest gift, honestly, because it allowed me to sit with my patients in a way that I couldn't have before having that experience. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I wouldn't ask it back, but I know it was a deep lesson and it connected me to this other part of myself. It made me understand the power of the subconscious mind because that was the breakthrough moment for me was having a hypnotherapist that came to my room twice a week and we worked on my subconscious. I'd done some therapy before and I was always told you're You've made such great inspired connections, but nothing ever got to that place I needed to really to itch. And it was the subconscious work that did it for me. So it was very educational, and I think it made me a better physician and a better practitioner. The second time when I relapsed, I didn't think I'd ever get it again because I got 150% better. A lot of people, when they talk about healing from myalgic encephalitis, chronic fatigue, they just want to be a little bit better. And I get that. I got 150% better. I didn't energy budget. I worked crazy long days. I had another kid. I opened clinics. I did all that stuff. And I really was good until I wasn't. And then when I wasn't, it was a series of things that broke the camel's back. It was perimenopause, it was injury, it was severe pain, it was sleep deprivation from the pain, it was all those things. And that's when I learned a very second critical thing to that everyone needs to be aware of is that relapse is always possible. Once your brain and body have that pathway set up, it's always easy to have a relapse. And I was shocked at how quickly I felt like I was going down that deep slide. Although I didn't have the option of lie in bed. If I had to go back to lie in bed, I would have literally taken my family into bankruptcy because they were financially dependent on me at that time. And I had a clinic with employees. I had all this stuff. And so the option of stopping working didn't really feel like it was there. So I had to figure out how to get better through while I was working. And I altered my schedule so I could sleep in the afternoons. I was up all night researching because I couldn't sleep anyway. And that's when I discovered these 5 core root causes. And I thought my practice would empty, but instead it filled up with droves of people with chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalitis. And I was able to create these hear these different patterns of fatigue and be able to match them to different root causes. And it really was such a huge breakthrough in terms of understanding a disease that's so complex that most doctors just say, "Hey, go away. I'm sorry, I can't help you." And instead of winding it and say, "Hey, if you look at this thing, and then you look at this thing, and then you look at this thing, we get to unwind this complex package and help walk our patients to a place where they have more energy."
That is amazing. And we've talked about this before, but unfortunately, I have suffered with this in the past, and it does come back if you're not being super
Mhm.
careful. And it's
Mhm.
just like you said, you're fine, and then you're not fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm super interested to hear what the 5 core causes are,
Yeah.
because this is clearly the center and truly the heart of your approach. So walk us
Yeah.
through what those are, please.
Yeah, I'll walk you through them, and I'm gonna weave in a little bit about long COVID in here too, because people often ask me, "Is long COVID the same as myalgic encephalitis and chronic fatigue, or is it different?" And I'm just gonna answer that right now so that you can if you're interested in the long COVID piece, you can be following along with what I'm saying, because I see myalgic encephalitis, which means there's inflammation in the muscles in the brain, which is what we see in the PET scans when we do research on patients with ME/CFS. We see that inflammation. So there really is something physiological going on in your body, and we can see that. And it used to be called chronic fatigue syndrome. Now it's called myalgic encephalitis. We're trying to make that switch in this country. Long COVID, I see long COVID as being under that umbrella, and your myalgic encephalitis was triggered by the long COVID. Now, because the COVID virus is such a unique virus and has so many interesting twists and turns in it, and because the receptor that it attaches to is in so many different parts of the body, there's lots of different signs and symptoms of long COVID. So long COVID has some of its own unique signatures to it, much like I would say somebody who has Lyme has some unique signatures to Lyme, but they also have things that are very common to myalgic encephalitis and chronic fatigue syndrome. Does that make sense, Dr. Ruth?
It does. It does. It totally makes sense.
Okay. So under that umbrella, so the root causes, and I also always want to say it's important to have your basic health foundations in line, and those need to be addressed as well. And I know Dr. Ruth is so good about talking about this with the dogs. It's what's going on in the gut, the digestion, the detoxification, all those kinds of things are really important. So we can talk more about that if you want to, if we have time. But the 5 root causes, the first is looking at what I call the gateway root cause, which is that hormone triangle. It's the adrenal gland, the thyroid, and the ovaries or testes for male. And that adrenal gland loves to work in harmony with each other. But if it's like a symphony, if one is out of tune, the others soon follow to try to balance it out. I call this the gateway root cause because we are so in the stress express culture right now, and it's just getting worse. with the internet and phones and 24/7 everything, and there's so much happening in the world right now that it's really easy for our nervous systems to get over and hyperregulated. And that hypothalamic pituitary axis can throw off so much in the body that you become vulnerable to some of the other root causes. Now, you may have one, two, three, or all five of these root causes. I'm just saying. But the first one was definitely one of the things that was part of the setup for me to crash. I had that adrenal fatigue picture going into probably my second pregnancy. And then I had thyroid stuff with all the blood loss. And you can just imagine all the other things. So that was definitely a key one. And I see this a lot with people with altered cortisol levels. The second one is looking at viral infections or bacterial or fungal infections. So any kind of chronic infection. We have this microbiome in our gut. We have a biome in our skin. We have so many critters in us and on us and around us. We also have a virome where we have viral particles that are part of our body. And we don't even have names for all of these, but they think viruses can get reactivated when there's an opportunity for them to thrive. And one of their favorite things is when you're stressed out is for them to go party time and to start replicating inside your cells, and they actually alter your energy production system so that you experience fatigue while they just make more of their babies. And so these chronic viral reactivations are super common. I consider them low-hanging fruit and something that conventional doctors could be testing for. I'm really hoping to change that they start testing for those, and they can be addressed and people feel much better when they do. Now, long COVID is one fits under this chronic infection piece because once you've had the COVID virus, either through vaccination or through getting the infection, you can kick off this long COVID piece, and that is a chronic infection at this point in time in your body. And that chronic long that I'm sorry, that COVID virus can activate other chronic infections. So a lot of people with long COVID also have Epstein-Barr virus or cytomegalovirus or HHV6 activated in their body at the same time. The other root cause is looking at your mitochondria. Your mitochondria do lots of things. They are the powerhouses of ourselves. It's where we create energy. They are also chemical messengers for your immune system, for your hormonal system. They do a lot of amazing things. Those mitochondria are so important and they're so vulnerable. They're just these delicate little things that are inside of your cells, and they can not start working less efficiently if you've got a viral overload, if you've got too much stress in your body, if you've got too many toxins, and they cannot function as well. One of the hallmark signs of mitochondrial dysfunction is having something called post-exertional malaise. Post-exertional malaise is when you do more than you usually do and you pay for it. Some of my patients, if they do the dishes and the laundry, they're in bed with pain for 2 weeks and fatigue. For some people, it is they can walk for 45 minutes, but if they go on a 5-mile hike, they pay for it. And you may pay for it right away in terms of being extra tired for days or weeks, or there can be a delayed response. Now, really interesting with long COVID, I'm seeing way more delayed post exertional malaise than ever before. And it's a very bizarre thing. We're trying to figure out what's causing it, but we know it's inside the mitochondria. And so that's one of the pieces, that's really one of the clinical pearls we can listen for. And then we look at all the toxins in the world. There are so many toxins we don't even have that haven't been studied that are in our beauty products, in our cleaning, house cleaning products, in our yard care products, used by industry, used by the farming industry, that are not good for us and block normal functioning in the body, and they really impact your energy production system. And a lot of people who are feeling exhausted with these complex chronic diseases like mild chikungunya and long COVID also have too many toxins in their body. It can be glyphosates, it can be heavy metals, it can be mycotoxins from molds, which is huge. And one of the things that can happen is some of these root causes can start to empower each other. So the mycotoxins alter your immune system, make it harder for you to respond to the viruses, and it becomes this complicated piece in your body. So just if you have one, you definitely want to be looking for the others for sure. And then, yeah, and that relates to the mitochondrial piece as well, because a lot of those toxins go into the mitochondria and can really impact how that mitochondrial functions. And then the last one is looking at this limbic emotional brain. And we have this beautiful nerve called the vagus nerve that's the only nerve that leaves the cranium, and it comes down and wanders, vagus for wandering, and attaches itself to all the different organs in your body and sends information from your organs up back up to your brain, the subconscious part of your mind. And that subconscious then feeds information, goes back down to your body. It's always surveying, are we safe or are we in danger? Are we safe or are we in danger? It's always looking for that. And if we have a history of trauma, if we've had traumatic brain injuries in the past, if we've had infections, if we've had, you know, big emotional upsets, those can be wire us towards seeing things as being more dangerous and can amplify that limbic amygdala insula response and trigger a safety response. And this is literally a communication between those mitochondria and your nervous system and the brain saying, we are in red alert zone. There's danger out there. I don't know what it is, but all I'm going to do is I think it would be a lot safer if you just hid out for a while and see if this storm passes. So I'm going to amplify your experience of fatigue. I'm going to amplify your experience of pain. I'm going to make you feel like you want to socially isolate because that feels safer right now, and go into your cave and hide. And that's basically what your brain is telling your body, and literally alters your pain receptors, alters your immune system, alters your hormonal, and can make it easy to get stuck into this place of feeling sick and tired.
That is that's the hard part, right? Because it
Yeah,
all feeds into each other. And then ultimately, because literally your body is in danger, your brain
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
constantly stuck in danger
yeah,
mode.
yeah, yeah,
S- I think there's a lot of people that are being diagnosed with long COVID. Maybe they've gone into some alternative care
yeah.
options, maybe they haven't, or ME or whatever it is. But one of the things that many of my coaches, clients get frustrated about is the first thing they're told is get your dog out of the bedroom.
Oh,
But the dog is the safety blanket or the cat.
mhm,
So
mhm.
how do you have any experience working around that? Because sleep is critical, and when you can sleep, you should sleep. Because I know what you're saying of that being up at 3 o'clock in the morning because your
Yeah,
brain is
yeah,
overwired.
yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting you say this. It's been this conversation my husband and I've been having about our dog and how much the dog gets to spend time in the bed at nighttime or not. And it's something, so I have different things to say about that. And some of it your listeners may love and some they may not like. So, as somebody who my best friend growing up literally was my dog and my hero, like I slept in a twin bed with our dog, and then my dog found a stray dog, and then we had a cat. And so I was in the twin bed with the Shepherd Lab mix mutt that we found, our 70-pound boxer dog, and the cat. And I slept somewhere in between. And I was very happy in this situation, right? Like I was happy as you could possibly be, sleeping with all the pets. So growing up sleeping with my dog, I can say that as a physician, there are times when I too have made that recommendation, or but I would say I have the conversation instead of make a recommendation, because I think we don't understand as doctors the value that your pet has for you in bed. But you also as a pet owner has to make the right decision for you in this time about boundaries and what's right and what is right for your health so that you can be there to take care of your dog. And I think this is just one of those conversations where you have to take it beyond a doctor saying, "Get your pet out of your room. That's ridiculous. That's why you're up at night. You need to sleep." And but it also, so here's what I'd say. How What benefit are you getting from your dog being there? Is your pet in bed for you, or is it because the dog has developed the habit and you don't want to listen to it whining for the first 3 nights, while it's like, why are we changing the pattern? It's like sleep training a child. There may be a point where it doesn't like it, but maybe it is better for you to have that time to sleep. And I have felt that way with some of my patients. I just have to be honest about that, that I felt like it is in their highest interest to get the dog out of the room. There are other people where that dog is like the weighted blanket. That dog or cat is like that, it helps them neuroregulate. That having that physical contact, that warm breathing thing next to them really helps their nervous system feel calm. And to me talking about that final root cause, that's connected to your autonomic nervous system. And we can't heal if we are in sympathetic overdrive. We have to get into parasympathetic. And one of the best ways to get into parasympathetic is to co regulate with another being. And so, this is why sleeping with somebody can be really beneficial for you if it's a good relationship and you feel safe with that person. And that's one of the things that pets can do for us is they can help us co-regulate. So I think you just have to, so what I would invite people to say is to just have an honest conversations with themselves about what is really important here for you in your health journey, and to take that action and to know that whatever you decide, you can change your mind in the future. So if it's, you know what, I love you, pup, but I've got to take care of me. And you may not like this, but we're changing the rules here for mom right now because mom needs to take care of herself so that I can be stronger and take you for longer runs. And that's just what we're going to do now. And then we can change that later when you're feeling better. So that's what I'd say. What do you think? Is that?
No, it totally makes sense because, and I've been in the situation where I'm battling adrenal fatigue and just at the brink of getting into trouble and going over the edge back into ME. And I've got three dogs in the bed. I'm
Yeah.
not sleeping. And it's all right, this has got to change.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of tools that can help with that. So if you, the pet parent, are feeling like, I can't do this, my dog, he needs me for comfort, this is where you can have a conversation with an animal communicator and
Yeah.
they can help you explain to the dog or the cat, my friend, if I don't feel better, if I don't get better, I'm not going to be able to take you for walks like you just said, or do the things we used to love to do together. So I really need your help so that I can rest and I can sleep. So I think that goes along the lines of a lot of what you teach people, which is literally empowered self care.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is going to serve me at my highest and best right now?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really important to really own the power that you have to heal your body and to also know that you know your body better than any doctor does. So if you feel like you're tired and sick, you're not getting the answers you want from your doctor, find a different doctor, have a different conversation. But in terms of this conversation with your pet, if you feel like your doctor is saying, "Oh, get the pet out of the room," and that becomes a place where you freeze and you're like, "I don't want to do that." I would say come back into your power, decide what you want to do and why, and then go back and have that. You can share that conversation with your provider and let them know that you're in control of your own health journey, and then see what else, how else they can support you in the next step. It's interesting. When you talk about the dog communicator thing, I grew up with my dad being really great with our animals, and he would talk to our animals, and I loved watching him do this, and it was like they really heard him, and because of that, I have learned to do the same thing, where he would just sit down and he just had that confidence that he knew he was connecting with them, and he spoke words, but he's just was with them and communicated straight into them and would say things, and it was like, "Oh, okay, I get that now." Like, they got the imprint of what the message was. And I've done that with my animals too. And I think that can even be done in these situations. And you can have that conversation with your pet. And then if at 2 o'clock in the morning, like, "Mom, I'm always in your bed with you," you can open the door. And with that same clarity of energy in yourself, of like, you can just say no, but you can say it in that way that is, "Look, we talked about this. I love you. I love you. I also need to take care of me. This is not what we're doing right now." Like holding that space and that same energy. And I found my dog, whenever there's been a pattern interrupt in terms of the habits, if I just hold it in that way, she's like, "Oh yeah, okay, that's right. Okay, I got it."
I forgot. And so that applies to every other relationship in your life, right?
Yeah,
If you've
totally.
got a relative that's like, why aren't you calling me every day? And this is where
Right.
you say, Aunt Jemima, I love you so much, but I am just needing to take care of myself. And so I'm happy to call you once a week, but right now I don't
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
energy to talk to you more often.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's very true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because I should, instead of making an assumption, I'll ask you this as a question. Do you find that many of your patients with long COVID, with ME, are the people that give until they're wrung dry?
I think it's really common. These conditions happen to impact women more than men. And I think there are cultural reasons for this, and I think there are biological reasons for this. I think there, and part of the biology is the hormones. I think there's hormonal reasons why it's easier for why our bodies respond to these infections in the way they do. But I also think culturally, we tend to be the ones that are we're really needing to be sure everybody else is okay and sort of the care providers. And hormonally, frankly, we're wired for that. We're wired to tend and befriend until we hit postmenopause and we don't have that estrogen there anymore. And so there's this making sure everybody else is okay before you're okay, putting yourself at the end of the list. And we're here biologically to procreate. And so our survival is not so important. It's making sure we can keep going so that we can have a child so that the species can keep going. I mean, there's this strong biological drive. And so I think putting your needs last is so common for women. And again, layered from biology and the power structures that are in the world today and what we've learned from our mothers and our grandmothers and seen in terms of behavior, it's all there. And yes, keep going, hide it, push it under the rug. Don't tell anybody how you're feeling. Put on the happy face and just show up again. And until your body goes, no, girl, I've got something else to tell you. And you get body slammed by the universe like I did.
Yeah, and that's it, right? It's like this is the only way that we're going to wake up and look at what's going on in our lives and decide
Hello.
that maybe we should make some changes. Like, oh, by the way, you're going to be down for about 2 weeks, and if you continue to try and do that, it's going to be
Yeah,
another few months.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
What
really
I
incredible.
would say on the bright side of this, all of this is that what I've personally experienced each time I've had a big situation in my life, what I've experienced with my clients and my patients is that when you really embrace the journey, when you really own your own power in terms of your healing, when you take this on and go, okay, I feel like crapola and Dr. Jenny says there's something I might be able to do about this. I'm going to start knocking on doors and figuring this out. And I'm going to own it. What I find is when people are actually on that journey, you start having all of these gifts that come along the way. And then as you get further up that mountain, you get out of the foothills and further up into the meadows, and you start seeing the top of the mountain, you get closer. You start to realize the gifts, like the deep, powerful gifts, literally that have come out of this. Every time I've had a deep swoop into some I had that relapse, I learned a whole bunch. When I got long COVID, I've learned a whole bunch. It's really invited me to discover more about my being so that I can be here more in my power, and I think truly to be more fully formed in terms of who we're meant to be in the world. I see people make these amazing shifts in their life with new relationships or new careers or things like that, or get back to work once they do the work of healing. So there's a lot of rainbows and silver linings in here for you.
Sweet. Now, you were telling me something really cool I wanted to go back to for a second.
Sure.
And you spoke to somebody that is training dogs to sniff out mold
Yeah.
in an environment. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't, so yes. So I work with a lot of people with mold stuff in the summit that we put on. I've done a lot of live Q and A's, and there were so many questions about mold, and we have mold specialists in the summit talking about how to test your house, how to work it through your body, all these different amazing things. And one of the biggest, hardest challenges we have is how is it that you can discover where the mold is in your home? Getting a good inspector is super helpful. We don't have the perfect test for home testing at this point. I really hope it gets invented soon. And I hope one of those people that heals from myalgic encephalitis, chronic fatigue, long COVID, then has all the energy to have this amazing breakthrough discovery in mold testing. But detecting mold, dogs can be amazing because of their ability to smell. And so there are companies that are training dogs to be mold dogs that you can hire to come into your home and sniff out patches. I had a conversation with a fellow physician. She's somebody that works with Dr. Bredesen's team, and she had a mold dog come into her home to be sure the remediation was done correctly. And the mold dog stopped over a second and then communicated with the trainer and then came back to it and then communicated and basically told the trainer that's that was an old place where it was, but it's not a problem anymore. They actually could find the place that they had done the remediation, but it wasn't an issue anymore. And then did find some hot spots that they still needed to do remediation to. So I brought somebody and I interviewed somebody for our Encore Summit weekend to who's a mold dog trainer, and it's fascinating to hear how they're training these animals to help us out to discover where the mold is in our home. So it's definitely on my list now.
That is amazing. I know
Yeah,
there are dogs that are sniffing out cancer, urinary tract infections, all
yeah,
sorts of stuff.
yeah,
But mold is awesome because it is difficult to
yeah.
find it in the home. I had it in my office. I had a that's a whole lifetime ago, thankfully. But I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then finally, th- this little mini fridge I had next to where I was writing records was leaking, and it finally had leaked enough that the floor got soft.
Oh,
But in
no.
the meantime, yeah, I'd been exposed for 6 and 8 months,
Oh,
and a
no.
technician of mine was like, "Yeah, I noticed when I came to work here," and I was like, "Damn it, why didn't you say anything?"
Yeah, no
But
kidding.
yeah, but it's South Carolina, high humidity, so it
Yeah,
was part of daily living too, so it's
yeah,
hard to sort out.
yeah.
This has been really fun, and I think I'm going to be fascinated to hear this person training mold dogs speak because that is super cool. So, Summit, Long COVID Summit 2.0, where can people go sign up to get in on the action and learn more?
Yeah, so if you have a place to share a link with them, they can definitely go through that link that you have to share with them. Dr. Ruth Roberts is in the summit and we have this incredible conversation about your pets and with chronic disease and healing and the energy connection between us and them. It was such a really amazing conversation. So I'm sure you, yeah, I highly recommend you check out that talk. But, or you can also go to my website, which is drjennytoofankian.com. That's Dr. Jenny, Jenny, Toofankian, T as in Tom, U, F as in Frank, E, N as in Nancy, Kian as in Nancy.com.
Well done. Cool. Dr. Jenny, this has been a ball. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing more soon.
Thank you so much. Lovely to see you again, and lots of love to everyone.
Ciao.